Alright, Season 9, is it worth playing? Is it worth your time for Diablo 4? So, first off, the seasonal powers are actually quite cool this season. There's a lot of cool things to interact with and a lot of decision making to go ahead and mess around with. And there's a lot of really cool interactions that you can do with a bunch of the powers. Even though you may look at this and think, well, there's only 5 powers, they can kind of interact differently. You can apply different elements to them, and they have different bonuses because you can also apply these new jewels. They actually did a pretty good job as far as the power goes. The area where I think we really need to see improvement is specifically the new content that you guys are seeing right now, which are what's called the dungeon escalations. You essentially are getting old content that we had in Season 0, which were dungeon modifiers that got deleted out of the game, which now return, but it doesn't really feel as exciting as I think that they want it to feel. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about it. So for starters, you obviously have to level at the start of the season. In the very beginning, all the gear that you get is trash. Until you get greater affixes, this remains the same. You do get more greater affixes, but I'm going to go ahead and actually kind of mention some stuff with Path of Exile as I play both the games. The thing with Path of Exile while I'm leveling, if I get a Divine Orb, man, I'm excited, right? I don't have to get to a very high tier. I don't have to get to tier 15 maps in order to get gear that makes me excited. Whereas with Diablo, until I get greater affix gear, everything is just trash. But even when the greater affix gear drops, I never felt the same way that I did with Path of Exile. And that is, I think, something that we can maybe look at in terms of exciting drops, right? Because I've played this game so many times and farmed mythics. I really hate the mythic farming in Diablo 4, by the way. But people have suggested as you get increased difficulty that you would get better gear, as in more mythics. But the thing is that you need the mythics to even progress for a lot of the builds. Specifically, Sork really relies on that cooldown reduction from Harlequin in majority of builds. And they have actually made a ton of changes, specifically for leveling. There is a massive, and I mean massive amount of change to a lot of the basic skills. There's just so much that got increased. We're talking damage going from 28% to 80%. So in terms of leveling, the basic skills are way better. It's almost the same as Season 8, although Season 8 had this problem where all the cool powers were locked behind the bosses, whereas these, you just kind of get the currency and you upgrade them via doing a bunch of different activities. And on the PTR, I'm going to be honest, I just kind of leveled up, so I didn't level up with the powers, but they said that it's going to be the exact same as far as the XP rate as the previous season. They're happy with it, but because we're getting the basic skills increased, that is much better. And after recently leveling up 2 different characters on Dawn of the Hunt for PoE, I am actually pretty grateful for Diablo, because Diablo, it's okay, an average player in, let's say, a weekend, or a really good player that can spend a lot of time, within a few hours, you will get to max level, and then you can start getting those GA pieces of gear. I never really liked the leveling experience too much in Diablo, because I felt like nothing mattered. So as far as the leveling experience, it's kind of a whatever. Nothing really feels super good to get in terms of a drop until you get your GAs, because they will 100% be replaced. And I really don't like that system as far as item power goes. I feel in terms of action RPGs, Diablo 2 still just did it the best. There's just so many items that you can get, even in Nightmare difficulty, that are good. So you don't have the mindset of okay, I gotta get to World Tier 4, gotta get to World Tier 4, I gotta get my GAs. Otherwise, every single piece of gear that you get can be dropped. So 1 is bad, 10 is good, and I'm giving it a 5. It's just kind of mid as far as leveling. It's not something I'm gonna complain about, but it's not something where I'm oh man, leveling is so much more fun this season. But I will say, though, that it is better than Season 7 because, again, the powers, the way you acquire them, is more than likely going to be more accessible earlier on than, again, the Tormented Bosses, which was kind of my complaint from Season 8. So I would say it's better than Season 8, but as far as Season 9 goes, leveling is just kind of whatever. Now, as far as seasonal power, oh man, the season powers are awesome. They did a really good job with this, so I gotta give them some props. So I'm also going to consider the gems as power, because you have these other ways to activate damage over time, and you can get some basically just multipliers here and some damage reduction. But I actually think their idea with the powers is quite cool. So I did a dedicated video. In case you guys want to check that out, feel free to check it out. And it's a 20-minute video. It explains everything in depth. But to kind of explain it, you pick a power, and even though there's only 5 here, you can kind of modify them. So you can choose the skill that you kind of how it performs, right? And then you could add a element on top of it. So you can do cold damage, poison damage, whatever. So all the elements can work except for physical. And then you have all these modifiers that you can apply some conditions, whether it's days, vulnerability, resource. You can break certain things that you normally wouldn't, like a wind wall or these monster-like things that are kind of annoying to deal with. I like it. I think that they actually did a pretty good job with this. So as far as the seasonal powers go, I would say it's like an 8 or a 9. I actually really like the way that they design these powers. However, I wish you could equip more than one. How it works is you pick the skill that activates the power, and if you push that button, in corresponding, like for example, this would be Hydra because it's on skill slot number 2. That's kind of how it works. You don't get to fill in like 6 different skills. I think what would be cool is if they added 2 skills, just 2, because I actually like this, and it'd be really cool to see if you do 2 different interactions and 2 different elements. I think we were looking at much more big brain ideas. In fact, when they announced the season of the Horadric powers, I was thinking, okay, we're getting like Kanai's cube or the Horadric cube. I was kind of expecting more big brain sort of things where you get to like combine or crafting. I had higher expectations, but in terms of the power, I think that they did a pretty cool job. I'll give them an 8 out of 10 on that. Now, as far as the seasonal dungeon escalation, all right, we got to be real with you guys on this. I went in super excited because I want new endgame content. This is a huge form of criticism on Diablo 4 that we desperately need. I don't want to do the pit. The problem is the pit is the only way you're going to get your glyphs up, and it's the only way you're going to get realistically good XP. Now, as far as dungeons go, I never really cared too much about the dungeons. In Diablo 4, like I felt like a lot of these things that are just annoyances where it's like you gotta kill something, pick up a key, or you gotta pick up like a stone, and then like, oh wait, there's 2 stones, you can only hold one, go walk back and do backtracking. Oh wait, there's a door, you're playing Dance of Knives, cancel your your snapshot, go ahead and pick up the item. I feel like the dungeons make this a lot worse than just the pit. However, obviously, we're here for the Obdicite in most situations, but also at the very end, there's a brand new boss, and I will give them some credit for the bosses. But in terms of the content itself, it's recycled content. We're using Season 0 content, which was like where you would have these modifiers that would be plus and minus on these dungeons, and then you would go in, and there'd be like a little thing that follows you then explodes every 1 second. There's like drifting shade exists again, which was something that would disable your skill bar. They make the game harder, but people didn't like these, so then they removed them. But then you're just copy and pasting them back, and it's supposed to make it harder, which straight up, it does make it harder. But did I find it to be fun or refreshing? Did I feel like it was a new experience? Not exactly at all. So as far as this goes, I like that there was kind of like a boss at the very end of the dungeon. There's also these other modifiers. You'll probably see it later in the gameplay, but like you can go into a room and basically you can make the monsters harder, and they can do X, Y, and Z. But for the most part, it's the same stuff that you've already seen. And as you're going harder in the tiers, it doesn't stack all of the modifiers. So in the first room, it may say that you have a bunch of like negative mods. Let me see if I can go and show you guys exactly what the mods are. Once we get to the second floor, you'll see when you get to the end of the first floor, there will be something else that you click on, and then you'll see that the monsters will have more HP or burning damage. Did I notice this in the gameplay? Honestly, not really. You will take a little bit more damage, but like it's not like a skill issue. It's kind of a numbers check thing. So as far as this goes, I really could care less for it. I want to say that they probably can't like remake a whole new season mechanic, but I want to say that as you go deeper, the rewards in terms of GAs, I did see like decent amount of GAs, but I did want to take this screenshot and share it with you guys, as it shows, because they were talking about as you go harder in the pit, you get better rewards. And pit 150 over here, you can see the rewards, 2 GAs. If you can complete a pit 150, I mean, everything better be quadruple GA, triple GA only, because that's the gear that's required to get to those pits. Well, to be fair, the Barbarian can just do pit 150 pretty easy, which is kind of like a bug, but I wanted to show you guys this specifically because you're not really supposed to achieve this. Now, maybe they haven't implemented the patch, I don't know, but I feel like as you go higher in the pit tier, you should get way better rewards. Like, these rewards, there's only 2 items here, basically, at the very end, and are they going to be good? 9 times out of 10? Probably not 1 GA. I think minimum 2 GAs. If you're doing pit 100 plus, I think like doubles, triple, quadruple GA should be, at the very end, at least 1. But like in terms of rewards, I feel like that was something that kind of ties in. But as far as like the dungeon escalation, I did feel like the rewards were actually okay. Like I was getting a lot more GAs, it felt like, and especially if you're playing a good build, you can go through the content much faster. But as far as it goes in terms of the dungeons, I just didn't think it was like exciting enough. So I'm gonna give it a 3. I think that we need to maybe we can up the rewards, maybe up the modifiers to be way more difficult, but then we also have to scale the rewards to be proportional to it. It just feels like what you're doing is a dungeon, and at the very end, instead of like being done with the dungeon, you just do another dungeon. Like it doesn't feel like a new seasonal content is what I'm trying to say. And I just don't think that this is going to keep people around for very long doing these back to back, because again, you need to do the pit to get your glyphs up, and that's kind of a big issue. Anyways, as far as the grind, did it feel good? I felt like Season 7 was a much better game state. I've always said Season 4 was kind of like the highlight of Diablo 4. It was the best season that we've ever had in terms of like how the game felt back when level 100 was max. I like that. The fact that you can max your glyphs out relatively easy. It just takes too long. And in terms of progression, I'm not even kidding when I say that it's easier to max out in PoE now than it is in Diablo, and it used to be the opposite. I think that if they focus in on making it so we want to play like several characters a season versus only like, you know, a handful, like right now, most people only play like 1 or 2 characters a season. Whereas before, I used to make every single class. And I felt like maybe that we've spent too much time in Diablo. Maybe we've done everything and it's just kind of just burnout. But because of that, I think that to get around fatigue, when you add all these new things to these classes, people will be encouraged to try out more things. If they're like, okay, I maxed out this character, got my glyphs up. But a lot of people now, they're like, get my glyphs to 70. Man, well, I'm kind of over it. You know, I'm tired of doing the pit. This is really what it comes down to. So I felt like the grind, it didn't really feel like super good. The leveling is fine because I felt like it's a lot faster than PoE, but like I just am tired of kind of doing the pit. And I think that it is pit exhaustion at the end of the day, really, for me. So I think that they can look at the progression and make it a lot easier to get your glyphs up to 100, especially with the more fun sort of builds, because there's certain builds that I really like that just simply aren't meta. Talking about any of like the ranged rogue builds, because right now it's pretty much just death trap even after the update. As far as tempering goes, okay, you guys already saw my score on this. I give it a 1 out of 10. And the reason why, I like the system. I just don't like that it's just a slot machine. And I've gotten to the point where, like, dude, it's just not fun to try to get that triple masterworking. Even though they've reduced the cost, that doesn't address the issue. The issue is, specifically with the masterworking on the 3rd tier, is just so annoying. I just really want Blizzard to fix this. We need checkpoints. This is a huge issue. People hate breaking pieces of gear. And I get it. You have to have some sort of way where, like, if you lose, it feels bad. But if you win, it feels better that you're winning because, you know, obviously if you lose, you break the item. I like the system, okay? I just don't like the system in terms of, like, it's RNG. I like being able to choose my mods on the item. Just let me choose what I want. And if you want to randomly roll it from, like, you know, 10% to 15%, hey, that's fine. I don't really mind that. But it's like, there's no skill involved at like, oh, there's a 1 in 5 chance that you get what you want. Everything else is just garbage. It's not even like, oh, well, I get kind of partial. So my suggestion to Blizzard to fix this to make players, you know, much happier, because I see this every single time. It's like, Blizzard, please just tell us that you see us talking about the tempering. It's just random. Again, I would really like it for, like, if you need, let's say, damage to close, you can roll damage to close. You could choose that one and it locks it in, but it rolls, let's say, from 10 to 15. And then you still have your RNG roll, but it's not like that you have, like, damage to distance on a barbarian build, which is, like, absolutely garbage, and it's like, oh, and you get it, like, 3 times in a row, and that leaves to people feeling frustrated. I've felt like Diablo 4 will be a more successful game if it focuses in on, you know, a casual experience, and that's kind of where the game should be, especially if you look at the way that they've designed the game after the most recent update. If you check all of these massive changes, especially on like the barbarian one, you used to have to get like damage to close, and like Sork, you would get damage to like you know, cold damage. But a lot of these, you don't even need to like look at the paragon anymore. They're just like, all right, vulnerable damage 20x, damage to close. You get it so easy without even needing to roll it on your gear, to the point where they made it more casual friendly. I think that's a good thing. Focus in, if that's your goal, your game design core should be, okay, we want to make a great action RPG that a lot of people can play, and it's super casual and it's like accessible. When the tempering is the most annoying thing. But it gets even worse when you try to masterwork 3 times in a row and you need to hit that specific one to reach that break point. Oh man, I could go on about this for like 10 minutes, but basically, masterworking sucks. Specifically hitting the tier 3 is just too annoying, so just let us have checkpoints. I've heard so many people, including myself, talk about this, and I don't know why Blizzard just doesn't say, all right, we hear you guys, we're going to make checkpoints at 4, 8, and 12. If you want to reset, it does not reset to 0, it resets to every 4th interval, so 4, 8, 12. So if you get a 12 out of 12 and you don't like it, you can reset and it'll go to 8 out of 12, and then I could just try again. It still has that RNG, which, whatever. But it still has that system where like, oh, you got it, cool. But it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh. Like, it's basically, then it feels too painful. Overall, though, is it actually fun? Okay, so by the way, as far as the tempering and masterworking idea, I want to give it like a 9 out of 10. But I also want to say, in terms of how it feels when you slam it, that's a 1 out of 10. It's getting worse because I played this game so much and just like, I don't like how it feels every single time I go in. Like, I don't want to go ahead and go in there and temper and masterwork it when you see the wrong thing that rolls like 2 or 3 times again. It's just like frustration after frustration. Remember, on a lot of items, it's a 1 out of 5 chance, meaning that the player on average feels worse more than they feel good. That's the big issue, actually, that I want to really stress for Blizzard. Anyways, next up, overall, is it fun? And some of these, I have not played all the classes, just as a heads up. So I think it depends on the class you're playing. Like, okay, since we're talking about Hydra, let's go over and lock in some Hydra gameplay. Oh, here's some of the mods that you can select, by the way, on these new Horadric strong rooms, by the way. These basically, you select some stuff, and this ties into like the dungeon escalation, but like it doesn't really feel like anything special. You basically go there, you stand in this little circle, and you kill stuff. It's very little brain activity required. It's kind of like, again, you can tune out. It feels the same as like just a nightmare dungeon. You're just going through stuff. It almost feels like one of those like side areas that normally you would never do because it's like, adventurer, help me, please. And you're just like, nah, I'm good. Like, you always skip. That's what these little like, they're called strong rooms feel like. The rewards are fine, but again, it doesn't feel like new content at the end of the day. Anyways, overall, is it fun? All right, Sork Hydra was fun. Like 8 out of 10 for that class. I really liked it. It was enjoyable. Maybe even a 9 out of 10. Rogue, though, if I was playing Rogue, I would skip out. Like, the best build, as far as I'm aware of, is still Death Trap, which can basically everything's like nerfed by like 10 tiers on Rogue because they nerfed the close quarters and all the nerfs. Every single class got nerfed. If I was a Rogue player, I would not be excited about this season at all. If I was a Rogue player, dude, I would just skip out. There is like a poison build. I haven't really seen how that is, unless that one is really good. Again, we're earlier on in terms of like seeing all the pit top tier clears, and it's kind of hard to search it because there's not like an in-game stat. I basically have been searching on YouTube again and again and like checking out other people's like lists for like, okay, pit 100 whatever class. But Rogue just felt really bad. If I was a Rogue player, I would be like 3 out of 10. I would not enjoy this season if I was a Rogue player, basically. Barb, okay, so you could do infinite damage with Barbarian. There is a Whirlwind build that is a little bit okay, but the OP build that gives you infinite damage is really fun. If that gets nerfed, then I would say Barb is not looking so hot. I would say, as far as the gameplay feels for Barb, though, it doesn't really feel like a brand new thing because Whirlwind has already existed. I'd say Barb feels kind of like mid. If you really like Barbarian, it's a class where there are some things with basic skills, and again, most of the stuff revolves around basic skills. You can try it, but there's still like skills like Ren that just haven't really been seeing some play, or like Upheaval that just really haven't had the chance to shine. I really think that they should try to focus in on maybe making Hoda again. I feel like Hoda, not like the Earthquake variant or like the Twisters variant of like Barb in general. Again, I think it'd be really, really cool to see like Hoda make a return, because that was the time that I had the most fun with Barbarian was Hoda. But anyways, if this gets nerfed like the infinite damage, which I assume it will, Barb's gonna feel kind of mid. Spiritborn, if you like the playstyle of Spiritborn, I mean, you'll probably have a good time. 7 or 8 out of 10 for Spiritborn players, and the reason why is the Quill has just been good every single season. There's like some sort of Thorn variant. I believe the highest pit clear is 110 right now with like a Thorns Spiritborn, which is something that, even though like you have like Thorns, it's not like you have to wait for them to attack you. It's more so kind of like you just damage them with Quill. And again, Quill has just been like the same thing every single season. So if you like it, again, you're fine. But if you don't like that playstyle, you're like, I wanted to see something new, probably not. Maybe like a 6-ish for Spiritborn. Again, I just feel like Quill's been like the same thing that every single season. As far as Necro goes, as far as I'm aware of, Blood Spear is just a little bit better. It's like 10 tiers higher than the minion variant of like the new Skelly Mages. But I think that's kind of cool that we have a build that's like pretty solid. It's like an A tier build. I believe it can do 94 was the highest that I saw with the minion build. Again, the Skelly Mages are the thing to play, and I like that. I'd say if you're a Necro player, maybe like a 7 out of 10. I honestly haven't seen too much of the Druid. There's some sort of like Poison Bear. I don't know the extent of how good it is. I did see a Pit 90 done with Shred, so maybe if you're interested in Shred Druid, I actually really like the playstyle of Shred, especially if you're doing low tier content, like you're just like one-shotting everything. It feels pretty good. I'd say like for Shred, As far as Druid players, I really can't score the Druid because I haven't played it or seen enough to really make a judgment for the Poison Bear variant. But as far as it goes, because of the Grizzly Rage design, you need to have it infinite for people to want it. So I would say for Druid, I maybe would give it a 5. But overall, how do I feel about this season for like the average player? Would this be a season that I can recommend? I would say if you're interested in like Hydra, I would say there is some fun to be had with specifically Hydra, but I think that I've gotten kind of burnt out of Diablo, to be honest. Like if I'm looking at this like as a whole, right, for like all the classes and how most people will feel about this season, because I was so underwhelmed by specifically the new mechanic. Again, when I heard that there's more Endgame, I was so excited, but at the end of the day, it's still just kind of just doing the pit again and again. And then, okay, you have your glyphs up. You want to get more items, then you can go into the Nightmare Dungeon Escalations, but they didn't feel like new content. And the only thing that's like holding me here is I really like the Hydra build. And then I also really like the powers, but if I want to use these powers, I'm still doing the same old content that I've been doing for so long. I'm just really hoping that in the next expansion, we can get just lots of form of endgame content. I do not want any more recycled content, and I'm hoping that Blizzard can make some new and exciting things that engage my brain. The thing with these dungeons is like, okay, the monsters have, you know, 10-20% more HP, they do extra 20% fire damage. That isn't new content, and I want stuff that's not just like a monster that just has a number that's cranked up. I think that we can look at other more creative ideas in the action RPG genre to really make players think. Again, I was super underwhelmed with this season because I was expecting some Horadric, like even if you copied the Kanai's Cube from Diablo 3, you could literally copy and paste that, and I think that this season would go from a 4 all the way to an 8 or a 9. And the reason why is you would have these builds, specifically Druids, like the classes, where like you always have to have like Tempest Roar, you always have to have Vasily's Prayer. You need these conversions, and this would open up the doors for more creativity versus since they've been nerfing everything. The reason why I actually want to give this season right now in the current state, minus PTR, it could get better, and that's the point of making these videos, is like I want them to let people be more creative. When you nerf everything, that only makes the builds way worse. And they even said on the live stream, we're not going to be the fun police. You guys 1000% are going against that, because what you do when you nerf every single build down, that just makes it so people want to only play the meta because that's the most efficient way to farm. But if every single build can do most content pretty easy, I'm talking about like, I want every single build to be able to level up their glyphs to maximum. I don't think that that's like too crazy and out of proportion to say that every single build that you play in the game, just make these numbers way easier to the point where everyone can do pit 100, but you can have pit 150s be impossible to do if you really want that idea. But I don't think that they should ever have like impossible content in the game, because genuinely to do a pit 150, I know there's a barbarian build that does it, right? I showed you guys that this screenshot from Rob over here where he did a 150. You can make this impossible, but I just don't think that they should design a game where like there's content that is literally impossible for people to do. But it just takes too dang long, and I think that people are just kind of tired of the pit. So make things a lot easier, and then you have a really good season. So here's my suggestion. I don't know if they can do this, but if you add the Kanai's Cube and make every single build be able to level up their glyphs in a much faster pace too, I think we could be looking at like an 8 or a 9, specifically if they add Kanai's Cube. I don't think adding Kanai's Cube is probably realistic, because there's probably lots of different bugs and stuff that would happen if they just added it in, but I want to say that would make the season a lot more enjoyable, because a lot of the best builds are pretty much the same. If you guys have been checking out tier lists, it's roughly the same, especially when you look at Rogue. It's just like you're playing the same thing that you played, but it's just worse. And that doesn't make any player excited to hop in and just have a worse experience. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. You guys can let me know how you feel about Season 9 so far, and I'll update my review if I need to, but for the most part, I'm going to say it's probably not changing, because there's not going to be some crazy update on the PTR as of right now, but that's my feedback to Blizzard to make the game better. Anyways, subscribe if you want to see more about content, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And again, let me know if I missed out on anything down below. Peace out.